Last year, I ranked every movie that I watched for the very first time, but the video was really long and boring. So this year, I'm taking every movie that I watched for the very first time in 2023, and I'm putting them against each other in an Oscar-style awards show to see who comes out on top. So this year I watched way more movies than I probably ever have before in my life. So that means that we have way too many to choose from. Unfortunately, for the sake of this game, only 4 or 5 different films will be nominated for each category. But if you want to see all 79 films that could have made it into this game, you can go check out the list that I made on my Letterboxd of all the movies that I watched for the very first time this year. Then you can come back here and tell me what terrible choices I made and how much better of a taste in movies you have. Okay, so let's establish the categories because, we've got some that are like the Oscars, but then we've also got some that are wholly unique to this experience. So of course, like the Oscars, we've got the Best Picture, my favorite movie that I watched this entire year. And then we've got, Best Cinematography. We've got Best Animated Film, like Best Score or Best Soundtrack. And then instead of doing actress and actor and, lead actor and supporting actor and all that stuff, I just have Best Performance, just in general. And then we get into some of the funky categories, like the funniest movie that I watched, or the one with the craziest twist. And lastly, the highly regarded, just as important as Best Picture, is the worst movie that I watched this year. And there are quite a few nominations. So just like the Oscars, we couldn't put best and worst movie right at the beginning, because then you wouldn't stick around to watch the whole thing. I mean, with the beauty of YouTube, you technically could just skip until the very end and check it out, but don't do that, or else I might cry. Just a little bit. So this video is also going to be kind of like ranking a smidge, because I don't think it would be very suspenseful if I just said the nominations and then I said who won and talked a little bit about the movie. I feel like we need to build a little more suspense than that. What I'm going to do is I will tell you all the nominations of the category, and then we are going to rank them on lowest to highest in that category. So looking at the list here, I think we're gonna have, obviously we have Best Picture as the very last one. And then I think that we're gonna have a worst movie. And then for my channel, cinematography is a really big one. So I feel like cinematography is gonna go at somewhere near the end. Best animated should be along with the best and worst. We're starting with best score / soundtrack, and then we are gonna go to funniest. Best performance is very highly regarded at the Oscars, but I know nothing about acting, and I find that I'm not really paying attention to performances a lot of the time. This one might be I might not be nearly as educated when it comes to these choices. Okay, and then craziest twist is at our halfway mark. Okay, so to kick off our awards today, we're going to be going through the best score / soundtrack category. So our 4 nominees for best score / soundtrack are Talk to Me, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Oppenheimer, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. In 4th place in this category is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I love this movie so much. It's in other categories, so I'm gonna talk about it a lot more later. But when you go to watch a Guardians movie, you know that it's gonna have a good soundtrack. That is kind of like the staple of the Guardians movies. Although it's a very good soundtrack and a really great movie, compared to the other ones here, I feel like it's just not as good. Clearly it was better than the other 75 movies that didn't make it onto here. So I'm not saying that it's not a great soundtrack. It's just not up to the caliber of some of these other ones. In 3rd place, we have Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer, of course, by Christopher Nolan, which I'm sure everyone knows about at this point. Again, I'm going to talk about it a lot more because Oppenheimer is definitely not just nominated for this category. I feel like their use of sound in it is what kind of created a lot of like the terror and the suspense. The way that they use sounds to mimic, the particle acceleration and like all of the nuclear fusion and fission that was happening was really creative. I like a lot of the songs. I feel like they're really atmospheric. They really help push this forward, but just compared to the other two in this category, it just wasn't up there. I'm sorry. Now, there'd be no sense in me telling you number 2 without telling you what number 1 is. So the winner of the best score/soundtrack category is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Now, please stay on the video, please. When it comes to the actual Academy Awards, no way on earth would this movie win. But I'm telling you right now, as a guy that loves old school hip hop and someone who grew up playing Skate 3 and video games like that, holy, is this one of the best soundtracks I've heard in so long. Like, it's having most of the music and stuff be that like the Wu-Tang and ODB and like Biggie and all of these other artists, like MF Doom. They got MF Doom in the movie. What other movie this year has MF Doom in it? Like, I grew up on Ninja Turtles, and when I think of them, it is this style of like hip hop. Like, Ninja Turtles are hip hop. The review that I left for it was that it's the Skate 3 soundtrack, but on crack, and I'm gonna stick with that. I think that kind of sums it up perfectly. Talk to Me is, of course, our number 2 spot, and I think that Talk to Me, it has a perfect balance, of actual pieces of music that like go along with the what the character's feeling, and they create an atmosphere for it. But then there's also songs like, I think it's called Le Monde, which is like so perfect, and it's become a huge trend on TikTok, and there's a reason for it. It's because it's a great song, and I just remember watching that scene in the movie, and it wouldn't be the same without that song and without that emotion that it gives. Okay, we move on to our next category, which is the funniest films that I watched. The nominees for this category are No Hard Feelings, Barbie, Tammy and the T-Rex, which is also Tanny and the Teenage T-Rex. I don't actually know what the title of this movie is. And Bottoms. Fourth place for this category is Barbie. Don't get me wrong, Barbie was really funny. I thought it was a really good movie. There were times where I had a good chuckle. I watched it on my birthday. It was a really good experience. The point of the film, of course it was a comedy. I don't feel like the point of the film was to be funny, whereas I feel like some of these other movies is like, that's what they're here for. They're not here to tell a story. They're here to be funny. Don't get me wrong, Barbie, really great movie. It's maybe not my style of humor, per se. At number 3, we have No Hard Feelings. It has been a very long time since I have seen, like, a comedy in theaters, and actually, like, really enjoyed it. I feel like this movie was funny, and there were moments where, like, I was genuinely laughing. Like, I was laughing hard. I feel like it had the appropriate amount of, like, crude humor and also just like genuinely funny things. And the winner of the funniest movie category is Tammy and the T-Rex, or whatever the heck that movie's called. You wouldn't believe me if I told you what it was about. Like, honestly. This movie came out in 1994, and it's starring a very young Paul Walker. The plot behind it is that there's a girl named Tammy, and she's dating Paul Walker, I think. And then there's some evil scientists that get a hold of this, like, T-Rex from, like, a museum. Like, it's an animatronic T-Rex. But then somehow Paul Walker dies and his brain gets implanted into this T-Rex, and so it's a love story between this teenage girl and an animatronic T-Rex, Paul Walker. The movie is not meant to be good, and I will stand by that because this movie is horrendous. I think this movie's on Shudder. I think that might be the only place you can watch it. If you can find this movie, please, I'm begging you, watch it. And then, of course, that means that our number 2 in this category is the masterpiece called Bottoms. I did not, unfortunately, get to watch this movie in theaters, and I feel like it would have been a riot if I did. But honestly, I'm telling you, if I wouldn't have watched this B movie about a teenager and animatronic T-Rex romance, Bottoms would have won this category easily. The style of absurdist humor that this uses is like right up my alley. Like this was probably the funniest thing that the funniest thing that was meant to be a comedy that I watched all year, that I've probably watched in a very long time. Okay, now we move on to our best performances category. The 4 nominees in this category are Brendan Fraser for The Whale, Ryan Gosling, I almost said Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Gosling for Barbie, Barry Keoghan in Saltburn, and Tilda Swinton in We Need to Talk About Kevin. In 4th place for best performance, we have Ryan Gosling in Barbie. Like I said before, Ryan Gosling is me, he is us, he is everyone. I mean, I'm not gonna ramble a lot in this category because I don't really know a lot about acting and what makes a really good performance. But I enjoyed him in this movie, and I feel like that was enough to put it on the list. Number 3 in this category is Tilda Swinton in We Need to Talk About Kevin. This movie is really wild. And it's one that I hadn't really heard about much, but I just found while scrolling on Prime, and it was really good. I mean, it made me absolutely hate Ezra Miller so much more, but Tilda Swinton did a really good job. I've never really seen her, I mean, I don't even remember what movies I've seen Tilda Swinton in general, but I feel like it was nice to see her in like a mother kind of role, because I feel like the only things that I can remember her from is really all I can think of is Doctor Strange. But it was really nice to see her. I think she did a really good job at showing, I won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen the movie, but just how she reacts in the end and how she copes with this crazy thing that has happened to her family. So then we come to the winner of the best performance category, and it is Barry Keoghan in Saltburn. Now, I know that you guys are probably screaming at the screen right now saying, hey, Owen, guess what? Brendan Fraser kind of won the Oscar for Best Performance in The Whale. And yeah, I get that. But am I the Academy Awards? No. I'm my own guy. And Barry Keoghan was a freak in this movie, and it was really cool. He shows the duality of his acting really well in this, and I know this movie's really new, and so I'm not going to spoil it at all, but the change in his character from the beginning of the movie to, near the end is really, I think, what kind of does it for me in this. He was really he made my skin crawl a little, but he also made me really feel for him, and I feel like that's a pretty good indicator of a best performance. I'm not going to talk about The Whale. I was going to say I'm not going to talk much, but I'm just not going to talk at all about The Whale. It's a really great movie. Everybody knows Brendan Fraser well deservingly got this Oscar. It's good. I like it a lot. With the next category, we have the craziest twist. Warning, for this category, there definitely will be spoilers. The nominees for this category are Saltburn, Promising Young Woman, Bones and All, and The Prestige. In 4th place in this category is Bones and All. Bones and All I watched in the early half of this year, and so I don't remember it a ton, but I just remember in the end where the female character ends up, eating Timothée Chalamet. I remember it kind of coming out of left field. I kind of expected it a little bit, but I didn't know if it was actually going to happen. But that's why it's at the bottom of the category, because in the scale of crazy twists, that's really not that crazy. At number 3, we have Saltburn. Now, as I was talking about in the previous category, the ending of Saltburn is really cool to see because I did not expect it. I feel like there were slight things hinting towards the demise of this family and how Oliver, is trying to become a part of this family. But I didn't think that he was actively going to kill off every member of the family. The moment that they go to Oliver's family's house and, they realize that it's a really nice house and that his parents are really loving and that Oliver has detached himself from that, I feel like that's kind of the start of the 180 where it's like, okay, this story was going one way and now I have no idea where it's going anymore. And then he's alone and he dances naked around the house. What kind of an ending is that? The winner of the craziest plot twist category is The Prestige. What the heck happens at the end of that movie? Here, this whole time, you're led to believe that, it's actual magic that is, that's happening in here, or these guys are just such crazy magicians, and it's just this rivalry, and then in the end, he's a twin? Is an identical twin? And the reason that they were able to do all these crazy magic tricks and these teleportation tricks is because there were always two of them, but one of them was always kept secret. And that's why when he would go home and his relationship with his wife, some days he'd be super loving and then some days he would hate her guts and he would cheat on her. And it's like, what? Why? Because he's a twin. So then, of course, Promising Young Woman is, the second place film in this category. And I think it's pretty crazy that you can have 2 films by the same director in the category, which goes to show that she's doing something right. Promising Young Woman was a twist that I maybe a little bit thought of. I knew that she was gonna have this big revenge, and I was kind of hoping that maybe they would get arrested. I did not know that she was gonna die, and the fact that Bo Burnham's character turns out to be the guy filming the video, absolutely unreal. It was a pretty crazy plot twist. Is it as crazy as him having an underground twin? No, but it was still pretty insane. Okay, category number 5, the highly anticipated Best Cinematography. The nominees for Best Cinematography are Moonlight, Fargo, Oppenheimer, Saltburn, and Dune. In 5th place in this category is Saltburn. I really love the 4:3, aspect ratio and vibe that Saltburn has. I think a lot of the lighting was really well done. I think a lot of the shot choices were really creative. But in the grand scheme of cinematography meaning something and being a way to drive the story, I think Saltburn just kind of looked cool and had a nice vibe to it. In 4th place in this category is Dune. Now, I was clearly really late to the Dune trend. I kind of watched it in preparation for Dune Part 2, but I did still really enjoy Dune, and I think that the way they shot it was really creative. I really, really love, the color that they used in the movie. I think that, the composition of a lot of the shots and a lot of the camera movement was really unique and really cool. But again, I think that it was kind of more of just a vibe that I liked from it. I liked the aesthetic of it as opposed to the storytelling purposes that the camera had. Number 3 in the Best Cinematography category is Fargo. Oh my goodness, Roger Deakins does it again. This guy doesn't miss. Like, insanity. The wides and like the isolating shots that he has are so powerful. Like, and this is kind of the opposite from the other two that I've talked about, where in Fargo, there's no crazy movements, there's no like really unique color grading, there's no change in aspect ratio. Roger Deakins is kind of wild, and his composition is unmatched. Number 1 in the best cinematography category, and this is so extremely close, is Oppenheimer. Oh my goodness, talk about a movie that uses the camera to tell a story. Hoyt van Hoytema has become possibly my favorite cinematographer since I saw the work that he did with Nope, and then now Oppenheimer, and there are so many other things that he has done that I need to watch, because like his work is incredible. The way that he's able to show the magnitude of like these explosions and like the macro photography of these different like particles, and the way that he was able to use, you know, practical effects and compose them in a way that didn't rely on many visual effects. I mean, I know like you get tired of people saying, oh, you know, Christopher Nolan only uses practical effects, but there's so much that has to go into the cinematography to actually sell those effects. The way that they change aspect ratios in it serves a purpose to the story. And I mean, yeah, it could be annoying at some times, and flip-flopping between the black and white and the color and the full screen and the 4:3 and the 240. Like that stuff can get a little annoying and repetitive, but he used it to serve a story. I love it. I love it so much. I love the way that visually they show Oppenheimer going through these like unreal emotions, and the way that they show the aftermath of this in his mental state without saying a word. Best cinematography, and if it doesn't win this year at the Oscars, I'm gonna freak. And Moonlight is of course the number 2. There's 2 different parts of me when it comes to cinematography, where I want the camera to tell a story, and I want every decision that is made to be story driven, but then there's also a part of me that just loves seeing beautiful shots. And Moonlight is so beautiful in the way that it's lit, and in the way that it's colored, and the way that it's composed. It's just the way that the skin tones are, and the grain that and the softness that the picture has. It makes a movie about life art. And I mean, life is art in a sense, but just the way that they use the camera in that movie just makes it look so beautiful. I would put just stills from that movie as wallpaper in my house. I genuinely would. We're stepping into the very last 3 categories of our entire show, and to kick it off is category number 6, Best Animated Film. The nominees for this category are Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem, Trolls, Ratatouille, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. My number 4 spot for the best animated film category is Trolls. Trolls is fun. I don't care what you say. It looks really nice, and it's fun. And guess what? Future Sex Love Sounds is the craziest name for an album I have ever heard in my life. And then maybe that's part of the reason why I like Trolls. It's just because Justin Timberlake is wild. Number 3 in this category is Ratatouille. I watched Ratatouille for the first time this year, and that kind of blows people's minds, and it blows my own mind too when I think about it. I was the perfect age for Ratatouille when it came out, and I don't know why I never did watch it. It's so good. Not only does it look visually stunning, but the actual story in it is incredible. And it's about cooking, and I suck at cooking, but when I see a rat do it, I'm like, I can cook too. Number 1, the winner of the Best Animated Film category is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Now, I almost didn't put this film at number 1. I almost let Ninja Turtles win solely because I had the worst theater experience of my entire life while watching this movie. I really want to watch it again so I can actually appreciate the whole bit of it. And I feel like, I don't like it as much as Into the Spider-Verse, but I can't judge it just yet because it's only half of the story. The reason I think that it wins this category is for the artistic value of it and how incredible it looks and how groundbreaking it is, the way that they're making this film. It has obviously inspired a large variety of other films. And I just think it deserves to win. I think all the hard work that they put into it kind of deserves to pay off. And you know what? Nobody that worked on Spider-Verse is gonna see this video, and there's really no reason for me to say that it deserves to be at number 1, but it does. So here you go. And then of course, Mutant Mayhem is my second pick. Clearly very inspired from the art style of Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse. But I don't think that it is, the same. I think it has its own artistic value to it, and I think that it kind of goes for something a little different. I have literally my wallpaper on my laptop is, a still from the movie, because not only do I love Ninja Turtles so much, but it's also just beautiful. Every frame a painting. Okay, the time has finally come. Here are the nominees for the worst movie that I watched in 2023. Poltergeist, Pearl, Megan, or M3 Gan, whichever you prefer, Tammy and the T-Rex, and Beau is Afraid. With the number 5 slot in the worst movies category, meaning that this is technically the best of the worst, is Beau is Afraid. A lot of you might be really angry at me for putting Beau is Afraid, Ari Aster's new spectacle, on the worst movies that I watched this year list. But oh my goodness, did that movie suck. That is not at all what I thought it was going to be. Here I'm Hereditary, Midsommar. I'm going into this being Beau is Afraid was horrible. It was not good at all. Joaquin Phoenix did a really good job in it, but that movie could have ended an hour and a half before it did, and I would have been so much happier. I'm not saying that it's a bad movie. I respect anyone that enjoys that movie. It's, for me personally, I would never ever watch that again in my entire life. And not only is it confusing and you have been way too long and you have to pee in the middle of it, but I watched it with my girlfriend's dad. And that's not a movie that you want to take your family to. Number 4 in the worst movies category is Tammy and the T-Rex. It's bad. It's a really bad movie. The effects are horrible in it. In the parts where they're trying to be serious, it comes off as a joke. The performances are all really, really corny and really bad. And the whole plot of it is just really stupid. Number 3 goes to Pearl. I have never been a fan of the X and Pearl and whatever the new one coming out is. I think that they have no real story. I mean, come at me if you want. I'm not a Mia Goth fan. I do not like her acting. I think she's obnoxious. I get that, that's kind of the character of Pearl. I liked X much better. I feel like X had a little bit more of a story to it. I feel like Pearl is just kind of gory and crude just for the sake of wow factor. I don't like it. It's definitely not my style of movie. It probably is for a lot of other people, but I think it really sucks. I'll say it. I think it really sucks. Number 1, the worst movie that I watched in 2023 is Poltergeist. Usually in a horror movie, you want the stakes to be you want to gradually build the stakes to the end so that you can keep people interested, and so you don't lay your cards out on the table right in the first act. Poltergeist definitely lays the cards out way too early. You know, the whole plot of like this little girl getting sucked into a TV and like having to fight her way through like these demonic creatures and blah 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 happens in the first like 20 minutes of the movie. The rest of the movie is, oh no, sweetie, we're gonna get you out. Who can we call? What about the ghost guy on the internet that I've been watching? I know he's got millions of followers, but I mean, maybe he'll come to our house. And then the guy shows up and he's in his heroic pose and he's like, I'm here to save your daughter. And then it's not scary for the entire rest of the movie, and it's like trying to be an action movie, but it's not because the plot is boring. And then of course second place is M3 GAN, which I hate that they're advertising all new Blumhouse things as like the creators of Megan, because Megan was not good at all. I don't think James Wan directed it, but I know that he was a producer on it. And it's the classic James Wan horror comedy or like thriller comedy that I just really don't like and I find like super cringe. Obviously, Megan was a huge success and a lot of people really liked it. I mean, it was like there were definitely cool parts to it. I will not lie. I think that some of the parts in it were really awesome. I think some of the stuff was like kind of gory in like a really fun way. I think the plot of it was kind of cool. I just think the execution of it really needed some work, and I think that the stupid little dance that she did makes me want to gouge my eyeballs out. I'm sorry. So here we are, faced with the final category of our awards show, the Best Picture category. This was very tough for me to pick. Out of 79 films, to only narrow it down to 5 was really hard. You know, let's just get into it. The nominees for Best Picture are Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Perks of Being a Wallflower, Talk to Me, and Oppenheimer. Number 5 on the Best Pictures list is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I think a little bit of my bias comes into play here, where the theater experience was just horrendous. And I feel, like I said prior, I feel like I can't judge Spider-Verse fully until the second part comes out, because it's not a complete story yet. There were parts in it that I really love. There were parts in it that I felt like dragged a little bit, but I feel like I can't fully judge it until I get the second part and it can be one complete story. Number 4 on this list is The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I had been told to watch this movie a lot. You know, people thought that I would really like it. And they definitely weren't wrong, because I love that movie. Ezra Miller, I think, gives maybe the only performance that I actually like from him, maybe ever. But the story is just so, like, it's so touching. It hits in an emotional part where, like, you just want the movie to be 6 hours long. Like, you just want it to keep going, and I don't want it to stop, because I feel comfortable and I feel happy when I'm watching it. At number 3, we have Oppenheimer. As much as I sing the praises of Oppenheimer, and as much as, you know, Christopher Nolan is my favorite director, I think Oppenheimer isn't necessarily meant for me. Oppenheimer is without a doubt, you know, a super like meaningful movie, and I think it needed to happen, and I think it's one that will kind of be remembered throughout history as like one of the great biopics kind of thing. I can appreciate the artistic value of it, and I think that it has such historical value as well, but I think it was just a little too long for me, and I was also sitting next to a guy that smelled really bad. So the winner of the Best Picture category to close off our awards show today is Talk to Me. I don't think I have ever talked so much about a movie in the days after watching it as I did with Talk to Me. So many things in it are the perfect horror movie in my mind. So many of the jump scares are done really well and not just like cheaply. The performances are incredible. The aesthetic of it is something I want to replicate really bad. And I think that they use a proper amount of like the like gore and like shock value. It's so good. Like it's so good. It's everything I've ever wanted from a horror movie. It's, you know, the Raka Raka boys, for this is their debut feature. You can tell that there are things that, you know, the directors that they bring from their experiences, and it's wholly different. And it's the fact that it's so different is just what makes me love it so much. So then, of course, that leads Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 as the second place in the Best Picture, and it was so close. I have been a Marvel fan since Iron Man came out. I have watched every single film leading up, and Guardians 3 was kind of therapeutic for me in a way, because it can like mark the last Marvel movie that I'll probably watch. You know, I was so obsessed with Marvel and with the combined stories and everything for so long, but now I'm starting to get what people mean by it's just getting churned out. There's no heart behind it anymore. And I feel like James Gunn really kind of finished off the trilogy in a really heartfelt way. I'm really glad that I got to have the last Marvel movie experience that I'll have in a theater, you know, with people that I love. I got to laugh and I got to cry a little, and the effects were amazing, and the soundtrack was amazing, and the story was so hitting, and I wanted it to be my number one so bad. But Talk to Me is just incredible. So that does it for our awards show today for the best movies of 2023, according to yours truly. Thank you for sticking around with me if you did. Congratulations to all the winners. You're not going to care. They're not going to watch this, but I'm glad that you guys stuck around. I'm glad that you kind of spent this time with me. This is something I'd really like to do every year. So if this is something that you want to see happen every year, please let me know in the comments. Please just show some support. Let me know that you're still here with me. If any of the decisions that I made you think are absolutely bonkers and you want to bash my skull in because of them, let me know. I'd be very interested to hear where I went wrong. If this is something that you want to see keep going and you really like the way that I do things around here, please subscribe. You know, it really helps kind of grow and get my stuff out to a broader audience of people. I mean, again, thank you for sticking around. I know this one was a bit of a lengthy one, but it makes me happy to sit here and yap with you guys. So I hope you have a really great rest of your day. I hope we can grow together as filmmakers, and I'll see you in the next one.